Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamaza here, and today I want to talk to you guys about potentially a new Demonology build. So in last week's Shadowlands beta build, there were a handful of changes to, I guess, every class. Warlock got a lot of Covenant tuning, and the Necrolord Covenant received probably the most changes out of any Covenant. For Necrolord Warlocks, Affliction Warlocks more so, they changed the way Drain Soul functions with Decimating Bolt. They changed the way Fire and Brimstone works with Decimating Bolt. But one of the big things out of last week's build is that for Demonology Warlocks, Decimating Bolt now affects Demon Bolt rather than just Shadow Bolt, and in a later build, hopefully next week, it will only be affecting Demon Bolt. So that opens up a lot more potential options, builds for Demonology, more or less being single targets. We have a lot of effects that increase Demon Bolt damage. Not Shadow Bolt damage, but Demon Bolt damage. It's the reason as to why a lot of us were asking for Decimating Bolt to shift to Demon Bolt. Any weak auras profiles add-ons you see here are indeed available to you guys for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, drop a follow, ask any questions, and grab them anytime. So let's get into this video and talk about why I think this build of Demonology, depending on how things go next week, could be a real contender for single target fights. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of effects that increase Demon Bolt's damage for Demonology Warlocks. Most of them are talents. However, there is a legendary, a Conduit, and obviously Decimating Bolt, which we'll get to in a minute here. So for this build, I've experimented so far with a lot of different talent combinations. However, there are a few that I feel most likely are going to be, if this build emerges being good, the cookie cutter-esque talents. So first row here, Dreadlash Bomber Strength, it's basically the same. Nothing really increases Demon Bolt damage in this row. It's important to keep in mind that Balespider Bombers does cost 2 soul shards, for those who aren't really familiar with Demonology. We'll get to that in a little while. 25 row, Demonic Calling Power Siphon. Power Siphon received the change, I believe, in late alpha, that increases the damage of your next 2 Demon Bolts, the 2 that you actually generate off of casting Power Siphon, by 30%. And with this being a 30-second cooldown, basically a button you have ready at will, you can hit it and then know those next 2 bolts you cast are going to have that damage amp, certainly adds a lot of power to this build. 35 row, Vile Fiend Soul Strike from the Shadows. So getting back to the big dogs build we played sort of recently on stream, Dreadbite causes the target to take 20% additional Shadow Flame damage from you for the next 12 seconds. Shadow Flame damage. What abilities are Shadow Flame damage? Implosion, Hand of Gul'dan splash damage, Demon Bolt. So this is a 20% increase to your Demon Bolt for the next 12 seconds after you cast your called Dreadstalkers. There's also a way to extend from the shadows even more with the Conduit, which we'll get to in a little while here. But so far, Power Siphon, 30%, from the shadows, 20%. 45 row. So there's no direct damage amp here to Demon Bolt's raw power. However, there is in a sense. So Inner Demons gives you 2 imps essentially being active all the time, which if played with Sack Souls does give you a flat 8% damage increase, outside of the actual chance of you summoning a demon here. Soul Conduit does give you more shards to play with, more shards, which for the most part means more pets, more Hand of Gul'dan cast for the most part, because you're probably going to be casting your Dreadstalkers on CD as long as things line up. More shards, more Hand of Gul'dan cast, everything of the sort. The thing is, even though Inner Demons feels a bit undertuned, having those 2 passive imps with you and the chance to summon more demons brings a decent bit of value to Sack Souls, I feel. However, you'll see when we get into the rotation, and we're going to look at a couple of different builds here, I think there's another reason as to why Inner Demons gains even more power, or I guess becomes more relevant with this build. So I feel for the most part, Soul Conduit or Sack Souls would probably be the option where I'd start with this build and just go from there and see how it feels. Final row here, obviously, Sack Souls, Shadow Bolt, and Demon Bolt deal 4% additional damage per demon you have summoned. So, demon, obviously, 1. Hey, we got the Felguard, right? Other demons, you're probably going to have, I would imagine, on average, 7-ish active. Probably like 6 imps and Technically, Dreadstalkers last 12 seconds on a 20-second cooldown, so just average 1. You know, I guess 7 to 8, depending on your Felguard, give or take a little bit. So, I mean, you're looking at probably around like a 24 to 30% damage amp to Demon Bolt. I guess Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt. So, you have 30 here, 20 here, 30 here. And technically, if you're playing Inner Demons, you're going to have anywhere from 4 to, I guess, 12, 16 if you get Demon procs. Extra damage with Sack Souls. So things do stack upon themselves and get pretty powerful here pretty early. There's a lot of synergy. This build, theoretically, reminds me a lot of Affliction with Drain Soul with the Malefic Wrath legendary. So let's talk a little bit about the other effects to make this build even more powerful. So I suppose the easiest thing to talk about, first of all, would be Decimating Bolt. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Decimating Bolt, which most of us probably are at this point, it's the Necrolord Covenant ability. Basically, casting Decimating Bolt increases the damage of your next Shadow Bolt or Demon Bolt by 200% baseline, and that scales all the way to, essentially, effectively 400%. The lower the health, the lower the mob that you're hitting target's health is, however that's worded. You get what I'm saying. So basically on a mob that's, 10% health, you're going to, if you cast your Decimating Bolt on it, you're going to have probably around like a 380% damage amp to your next 3 Decimating Bolt cast. Now, the tooltip here does say Shadow Bolt or Demon Bolt. However, once again, that's changing in hopefully next week's build. I'm going to say here, spoilers ahead, boys, Decimating Bolt is currently not working with Demon Bolt. Even though I can cast Decimating Bolt, casting a Demon Bolt will not consume charges of Decimating Bolt's damage amp. So we're going to have to look at this build without having Decimating Bolt active, but let's be real. It's the damage from Decimating Bolt you'll see here is still pretty impressive. And Demon Bolt on top of that. They're both pretty strong. And looking at how impactful it is in our damage breakdown and our rotation, without Decimating Bolt, I'm excited to see where this build might go. The second ability we have here that affects our damage outside of Decimating Bolt is actually a Conduit. It's Carnivorous Stalkers. Now, for those of you guys who watched my video on the Dreadlash from the Shadows build, the, I guess, Big Dogs build that we've been calling it, this is that same Conduit. Your Dreadstalker's attacks have an 8% chance to trigger an additional Dread Bite. So, from the Shadows was recently changed. It read something along the lines of before, like whenever your Dreadstalkers first jump into battle, they bite the target and apply from the Shadows. They changed it so that Dread Bite causes the target to take 20% additional damage, Shadow Flame damage. So this Conduit went from being just whatever to a key component in a From the Shadows build. Now, we played Dreadlash in this build before because it was more of a Mythic Plus focused build, not really worrying about Demon Bolt damage. And your Dreadlash technically does make your Dread Bite AoE, which AoE is your, From the Shadows. And it just all works together really well. It's super synergistic. Now, a 12-second window on a 20-second cooldown, being From the Shadows and called Dreadstalkers, is a pretty long time. For the most part, you can weave in a pretty good portion of your Demon Bolt cast, which are all Demonic Core procs. We're not hard casting Demon Bolt here in that window. However, extending it, obviously, it's still impactful for Hand of Gul'dan damage, implosion damage if you're using it in some stack setting for whatever reason. And there are times where, hey, you're getting close to Demonic Core capping, which you'll probably see here in a few minutes, where you do need to dump more Demon Bolts. So From the Shadows, Carnivorous Stalkers, Dreadlash, a very, very strong, very synergistic here. The final ability, or I guess final effect, that I think really helps this build out a good bit is a legendary effect. It's also on a pair of gloves, just like Malefic Wrath. This is the Balespider's Burning Core legendary, which I believe drops off Artificer's Zyronic in Castle Nathria. Burning Wraps of the Balespider. Shadow Bolt increases the damage of your next Demon Bolt by 25%, stacking up to 4 times. So we are looking at a 100% damage amp here from Burning Wraps of the Balespider. Essentially, you have, if it's stacked to 4, obviously. So let's do some math here quickly. A 4 stack of Balespiders, that's a 100% increase to Demon Bolt's damage. Let's say Decimating Bolt gives you 200 baseline. We're not going any, just the first one you cast. That's a 300% increase to Demon Bolt's damage. 330, 350, 300 and roughly 85 or so, give or take a little bit depending on what's going on. how many pets you have out. If you're actually in a Tyrant window, your Tyrant, whether you're playing Consumption or not, which we're not in this build, at least initially right here, we're going to look at a few different builds coming up, no longer consumes your imps anymore, and all your pets are active, and they're all extended. So in those windows, that's where you get the big Demon Bolt hits. They crit for 12k, 13k, without the Necrolord Decimating Bolt damage amp working, because it's bugged right now. So there's a lot of synergy with this build. It really reminds me a lot of Affliction's Malefic Wrath build. The big thing, with Drain Soul, obviously. The big thing, though, is that Demon Bolt, well, it doesn't have an execute clause on it, like Drain Soul does. But Decimating Bolt still does, and even without that execute clause, it makes up a pretty substantial part of our damage. I will say, the one thing I wish that Burning Wraps of the Balespider did, or I guess... So, the way this works is that it's not like Malefic Wrath. So we can cast 4 Shadow Bolts to get a Demon Bolt amp, and it's worded this way. Increases the damage of your next Demon Bolt by 25%. If you get this ability to 4 stacks and cast Demon Bolt, wait for the GCD, and Demon Bolt again, that first Demon Bolt will consume this effect. It's not a passive effect that you just keep up, that you maintain, like Malefic Wrath. So when we get into the rotations here in a minute, you'll see that it certainly does pose some issues, some problems rotationally, and I'm still sort of digging for a few answers to this. It might mean a few talents need to be swapped up, but regardless, having this 100% damage amp with Decimating Bolt, with Power Siphon, with From the Shadows, with Inner Demons, and with Sack Souls, and just whatever other damage amps you have at that point in time, it's really strong. Let's take a look at a few different builds here and how they look damage-wise. Okay, so the build that I want to start off with is going to be, we'll play just Dreadlash, Power Siphon From the Shadows, Inner Demons, and Sack Souls. And I want to make it clear, boys, is that I'm not looking for the top tier min-maxing max DPS build at this point in this video. We're more or less looking to see how it feels mechanically, synergistically, and go from there. Let me get rid of these talents here, because I do have War Mode on because of people destroying this dummy. Let me make sure nothing's going to impact my damage here. Okay, we're good. All right, so like I said, the first build, Dreadlash, Power Siphon From Shadows, Inner Demons, Sack Souls. Let me activate my Conduit here. We're already rolling with it. Perfect. Carnivorous Stalkers. We're also playing Fel Commando and Born of Blood. Now, I will say, I'd like to swap this Born of Blood Conduit out here. You'll see in a minute. I don't want the extra charges of Demonic Core, but I can't because I'm locked behind these Conduits for the rest of the week. Anyways, let's get into this. So I'm going to follow like the normal opener. Let me pop a flask here. I'm going to like follow the normal opener I've been following for the most part, which has really just been precasting a Demon Bolt into Dreadstalker's Hand of Gul'dan, build 3 shards, hand again, Tyrant, and just go. We're going to try and stack the actual damage effects and also try and weave in Decimating Bolts, even though, keep in mind, once again, Decimating Bolt is not working with Demon Bolt. You'll actually see the stacks appear at 3, and when I cast Demon Bolt, it's not going to consume those stacks. You can look for yourself, keep it in mind, but yeah, so let's do this. Demon Bolt, we're going to cast our dogs, we'll hand here, I'll Zerking now, kind of a little lazy. We'll build in 3 shards, and we'll cast a Tyrant. This is my weak ore for Balespider's Burning Core to Legendary, right? Hand, we'll go into here, we'll Tyrant, we'll Decimating Bolt, we'll Hand of Gul'dan, cast a Shadow up for 4 stacks, Power Siphon, Bolt. A 12,000 crit. It's pretty impressive. A 12k crit from the Shadows reproc right there. I'm just going to try and follow this rotation for the most part. I should have trinketed there as well, but I'm not really used to use unused trinkets at this point on beta. So the big thing here is that you'll see I have about 13 seconds left on Power Siphon CD here. I'll start launching these bolts here. I want to dump them for the most part. Look at my core stacks. We're sitting at like 4 core stacks. It's a pretty good bit. And I'll dump here again. I want to get dogs on CD. Power Siphon's back up. I want to get my Balespider's Burning Core stacked though here, obviously. But from the Shadows, getting close to dropping. So I'll hand here again. Perfect reproc. 3. Power Siphon. Bolt. Technically, I should have actually Decimating Bolted, but whatever. Cast the hand again and Bolt. We're getting so close, we actually lost a stack of Demonic Core there. Because we waited too long. Our dogs expired. Like, this is the issue that I found with this build, is that you almost have too many Demonic Core procs. Even with playing, like, not playing Soul Conduit, playing Inner Demons, you just have so many procs that it's sort of hard to control. We're okay right now, for example, but let's go, like, we'll Hand of Gul'dan here, dump these shards. We'll do one more thing here. I don't want to dump this. We'll dogs, siphon, bolt, 10k crit, and then we'll just do this again. We'll bolt one more time, go into our tyrant, extend, and then for the most part we have decimating bolt coming up again here. The issue is, once again, when all these things are expiring, we're going to hold this bolt for a second or two. You'll see how crazy things get. We have just so many procs coming in. Dog procs should be coming in about now-ish. So I'll cast the bolt. Dog should be expiring about now. We'll into another set of dogs. Stack gets to 4. Power siphon. Dump. And start dumping. We actually lost a core stack there again because, like, everything was expiring. And look, dogs are expiring again. We're going to get 3 right now. Like, rotationally, it's a lot of fun. I like it. It's just sort of hard to micromanage from the Shadows uptime, the actual power siphon cast, the decimating bolt cast, everything else. And now I will say I have not played a whole lot with this rotationally, but let's look at the damage breakdown here. Let me actually do one more power siphon window. We'll stack this to 4. Dogs are up. We'll siphon, bolt. We'll just dump these bolts. Why not? We'll dump the bolts and we'll implode. Implode. Looking at our overall damage breakdown, Demon Bolt is 20% of our damage with a max crit of 12,154. Keep in mind, we are not casting. We cast Decimating Bolt, but we don't get the damage amp. None of these Demon Bolts at all have been affected by Decimating Bolt. That Demon Bolt that crit right there for 12,000 would have been affected by Decimating Bolt if it was working, but it's not. So it would have been a much bigger hit than 12,000. It'd be much higher than, well, honestly, 20% of our damage. It's a bit unfortunate to see Demon Fire this far down here, but keep in mind, once again, we're not playing Demonic Consumption. You see Shadow coming in at about 10% here, which is to be expected. Sack Souls does indeed affect Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt, but like I said, one of the bigger issues I feel is that it's just sort of hard to dump all the shards, or all the core procs. At times, you're just sort of sitting here wondering, okay, I'm at 4 stacks here, and I can't really dump these stacks because I'm also getting close to like my max stack of Balespider's Burning Core. I want to cast these bolts, so I don't want to overcap hitting my Power Siphon, but I want the 30% damage amp that Siphon brings. So I don't know if there's a world damage-wise where you're at 3 stacks, you have your bolt amp, you have your Balespiders, and you just go whatever, Siphon, lose a stack, and still blast. There might be, I'm not really sure. I haven't really done the math on it, but let's look at a different build here that maybe has, well, for the most part, has had a bit less shard management issues. So the second build here, remember at the start of the video when I said, by the way, this is an intellect flask for those of you guys who might get confused here, just a different color. Remember when I said Balespider Bombers consumes 2 soul shards, and to keep that in mind? Well, I shifted to this build because, like I said, I was having issues with managing shards, more or less having too many demonic core stacks. Balespider Bombers gave me a way to dump 2 shards faster. So I want to try Bombers in conjunction with Grimoire Felguard this build. Now, shifting away from Inner Demons does mean overall we're going to have a lower damage amp on Sack Souls because it's 1 larger demon every 2 minutes versus 2 imps passively, and the chance to spawn an extra demon or 2 depending on cast. But I think that this build should rotationally feel probably a little better. So let's give it a shot. We're going to open again on Demon Bolt. I'm going to Zerking early because I'm lazy again. Demon Bolt, we're going to go Dogs. Hand. I'm going to build the 4 shards here. We're going to go Felguard into Imps. We probably change the opener a little bit there. It doesn't really matter either way. We get extension here. We're good to go. There's Tyrant. I'll hand. Bolt. We actually have 4 stacks here. We'll Decimating Bolt. We'll Siphon. We'll Bolt. There's your 7k hit right there. A 7k Siphon hit. Or Demon Bolt hit right there. And that would indeed be consuming charges of Decimating Bolt here. We also threw in a Balespider Bombers there to dump extra shards. And for the most part, this build has felt a bit better, a bit more manageable as a whole. And I've really just gone from there. We're looking at the overall damage breakdown from that poll. Demon Bolt is still a lot of our damage. It's not like 20% like it was before, but it's still a pretty good bit. Partially it's devalued due to having Balespider Bombers. I mean, because it wasn't an ability you'd see previously. It was just like Dreadlash damage, which wasn't as impactful. You also have Grimoire Felguard now, which also is, you know, drawing a bit of the overall percentage damage away from Demon Bolt. But the effect is still there. We didn't have a 12k crit here. We had a 6k, or I guess a 7k crit. But look at our normal hit. we had a 7k normal hit, which is actually higher than our max crit. And this is because it was in our Tyrant window with Sack Souls, all our pets out, Balespiders at 4, from the shadows, Power Siphon, everything was stacked up, and the bolt just crushed. If that thing crit, you're looking at a 14k Demon Bolt hit, and that's not including the Decimating Bolt damage amp. The third build that I wanted to try is actually shifting a bit back towards the Demonic Consumption build of Demonology that we've played for a while. Once again, Decon has been changed in Shadowlands to now consume, I guess, drain health from your pets and empower your Tyrant that way. So your pets aren't being consumed here. Keep in mind, well, your imps aren't. Keep in mind, though, that we're not playing Sack Souls with this build. I've also shifted back to Demonic Strength. I don't know if this is like a... We're just going to give it a shot and see how it feels rotationally with Shard Gen and things like that. Staying with Siphon, staying with FTS, not taking Vile Fiend here because of FTS, and staying with Grimoire Felguard. Let's open up here, same opener, and see how everything feels for the most part. Felguard, dogs. We'll build the 5 shards here, and then we'll go hand-hand into our Tyrant. Hand, there's that. We'll hand, Shadow Bolt, hand again. I'm actually following this opener because I'm used to the Sack Souls buff. We'd bolt, we'd siphon, we'd bolt, and we bolt. That's a 9k crit right there, regardless. We're not even playing Sack Souls. That's a 9k Demon Bolt hit. It is Shadow Bolt's consuming charge of this, FYI, boys. You see Decimating Bolt, it's being consumed by Shadow Bolt, and not Demon Bolt. That's a 9k Demon Bolt hit. And our damage is pretty respectable, too. Looking at, like, Demon Fire, hey, it's back to dealing damage again. I mean, it sort of makes sense because of, well, you know, the fact that we're actually playing a talent that empowers our Tyrant again. Probably should have Demonic Strength on our bars, but hey, it's, you know, it's whatever. Dogs are on CD. We can Siphon again here and launch 2 bolts. That's a double empower, and then just keep going. So, part of me, like, rotationally, I just want to follow like a normal sequencing here. I'll hold Strength for our Tyrant again. It'll skew things a little bit, but it's fine. I sort of just want to see how damage is, not following the insane Demon Bolt stacking Balespider's rotation. Like, how much of a difference is Demon Bolt damage-wise if we just follow our normal opener? Playing Demonic Consumption, playing everything else. It is actually better than whatever other legendaries we have access to. Because looking at Demo, when it comes to legendaries, there's not really a whole lot on the table. You've got, like, really powerful effects for Affliction, pretty good ones for Destro, but Demonology sort of has the short end of the stick. There's not really a whole lot else. There's not really a whole lot that they really want to play outside of, like, niche scenarios, like the Implosion one, or the Dreadstalkers one, which is really good in the dog build, but not really good anywhere else, you know? Let's do one more Tyrant sequence here, and then see where our damage lies. Alright, we have everything coming up in about 2 seconds here. So we'll hit, smash this, actually bolt here, and we'll do hand, bolt, hand, and the Tyrant. We actually will Demonic Strength here, because, hey, that's a button I can press. Still have FTS up. FTS actually reproc, so we'll do one more hand here, dump that, Siphon, bolt, bolt, the 6k crit, and the second one's obviously lower because of, you know, Balespider's not being as high and everything else. Still solid, though. It's still solid. I'm curious to see the overall damage breakdown, and this, for the most part, does seem to be the highest version of the build that we've seen. Just watch this last bolt. Let's see what we're looking at here. Damage-wise, it's about 15%. Demon Fire is a lot higher, but there's three main abilities here that are actually dealing a large portion of our damage, instead of it just being Demon Bolt at 20 and Fellow Firebolt at 15. Demon Fire is back at 13. Demon Bolt, 15, and Fellow Firebolt being 15.3. Look at the max hit, though, here. Our max normal hit, 3k. Our max crit was 9k. This is not playing Sack Souls. This is playing Demonic Consumption. So even without Sack Souls being a thing, you can still see that Demonic Consumption brings a lot to the table, and Demon Bolt still hits pretty hard. So the last thing that I want to test out here for the most part is actually shifting away from Balespider's Burning Core, the legendary, the one that increases it by 25, 50, 75, or 100%, depending how many Shadow Bolts you cast, and just shift to the free Hand of Gul'dan charge one, the Band of the Horned Nightmare. I guess just Horned Nightmare in the first place. Now, it might seem like the Balespider's Burning Core one is a lot more synergistic, and it is, to a certain extent. The thing is, like I said earlier in the video, it gets easier to manage demonic core stacks the more you get used to it, and playing different talents certainly helps offset that. However, there are times where you want to stack your Shadow Bolt damage, your Demon Bolt damage amp by casting 3-4 Shadow Bolts in a row, but you really can't because you have 4 core procs and you have 2 more coming in 5 seconds. You just can't cast those Shadow Bolts and dump them all at that point in time. Band of the Horned Nightmare does give you a chance to cast a second Hand of Gul'dan. Now, whether you're playing Sack Souls or Consumption, depending on what build you want to roll with here, a second Hand of Gul'dan means 3 more imps, or I guess however many shards you put into that Hand of Gul'dan. Hand of Gul'dan is also Shadow Flame damage, which is further increased from the shadows. So this sort of goes along with the, I don't know how much I want to just put all my eggs in one basket. Maybe we just stick with a build like this, and maybe Necrolord's just our best bet in the first place. Let's give this build a shot here, and then we'll look at a Sack Souls version of this as well. All right, so Horned Nightmare's on. We'll open up, same as we did last time. Felguard, we'll go Dogs, build to 5, then go Tyrant. I'll remember my Demonic Strength this time too, I swear, I promise. Hand, Tyrant, Demonic Strength. I'll actually cast Decimating Bolt here because why not? It's sort of whatever at this point. I'm looking for Balespider stacks, but I just don't have them. So we're actually going to hold to cast Dogs here on Power Siphon from the shadows. There it is. Power Siphon, launch, and launch. So they're not hitting anywhere near as hard. You saw them for 2k, a decent bit less than before. We don't have Sack Souls, and we don't have Balespiders. Balespiders does indeed increase our damage by a pretty good bit. However, I want to see just long-term here what Demon Bolt makes up damage-wise, playing a more consistent build. So let's just rotate through this, and we'll get one more Tyrant usage out with our Felguard, and then just see where it goes. Alright, so we are coming back around into our second Tyrant here. We'll build the 5 shards. Felguard, Dogs. We have Siphon coming off CD right now, so we'll go Bolt, Hand, Bolt. We'll Hand again. Go into our Tyrant. Use up some of these shards. Demonic Strength coming off CD. Technically, we'll be casting Decimating Bolt here. We'll do it now. FTS is about to drop. We can go bang and dump 2 procs here before it goes. And we're at 5 shards. It was actually really nice to have the FTS reproc there. I think things were a little pushed back. Let's give it another second or 2 here, and then we'll look at the overall damage breakdown. This does indeed seem to be the largest build as a whole right now, maintaining 3.4, 3.5k DPS. The other builds have been a little lower, although I will say they haven't been as well optimized as previously. Damage-wise, where are we at here? Let's see. So we're looking at Demon Bolt being about 9% of our damage, which is more than it is just running this build outside of having the other damage amps we're playing, like from the shadows, like just everything that we normally take into account. From the shadows, Power Siphon, running the normal build of Calling, Soul Strike, or Vile Fiend, it's around Shadow Bolt damage, maybe a bit lower, like 5-ish%. It's still about double its damage, I feel. Demon Fire being 13.5, and Firebolt being 16.6. The crazy thing is, once again, looking at the damage here, crits weren't incredibly impactful. Normal hits are actually sort of close to the critical hits. It's just timing from the shadows, with Power Siphon, and all that. When the stars align, you might get that 25, 30k hit if Decimating Bolt is indeed working in the next beta build. The thing is, it's still 10% of our damage, and Decimating Bolt is not even working with this damage amp. I'm pretty impressed with this. You can see Hand of Gul'dan damage is also a little higher here because of FTS and double procs and things like that. Probably also inflating the Firebolt damage a tiny bit. Let's take a final look at a Sack Souls build playing the Hand of Gul'dan Horned Nightmare Legendary. Alright, so we have indeed made the swap to Sack Souls over Consumption. We're still playing Horned Nightmare. Let's see where this goes. We were sitting at about 3.4k coming out of our second Tyrant last time around. Let's see what this build can do. Same opener as before, obviously. Always. Not messing anything up here. 1 to 5 shards. We're going to Tyrant right into this and just see where everything's at. Hand, Tyrant, Strength, and let's go. We'll actually cast a Bolt here. Doesn't really matter a whole lot, our opener after this, because we're not playing. We're good to go. Pop our Power Siphon. Bang, bang. Dump those there. We had FTS back up, which is awesome. Actually reproc before they expired, which is really great. And a 5k opener is actually impressive. It's pretty good burst-wise. I imagine a lot of that is based off consumption. Yeah, a pretty decent bit. But you can see the actual core charge just flowing in here. Actually, just like so many procs. We had to dump 3 there pretty quickly because we knew the last 2 were coming in from Dogs any second. Felguard, Dogs, Bolt, Hand, Bolt, Hand, Tyrant, And there we go. We'll actually strength again. We'll siphon, launch this, cast his hand, launch one more bolt for expires. Actually reproc, which is really nice right there. Then we'll take a look at our damage after this and see what the breakdown is. Let me launch one more set of dogs here, actually, to dump this last proc or two. Then we'll be good to go. Yeah, just implode. It's fine. So, looking at our damage breakdown, Demon Bolt's back to about 14%. Demon Fire is a lot lower at 4.2%. We're actually relatively close to where we were before. We're at 3.1k. I think we're at about 3.3, 3.4 before. It was probably like 3.2 before I pulled off the dummy, everything here. So it's sort of close. Once again, it's hard to keep in mind. You need to keep in mind, it's hard to tell what the actual decimating bolt damage amp will do to this, because depending how they stack and multiply exponentially, things can get out of hand pretty fast. We've seen what Necrolord Affliction does with Drain Soul, Rapture, Execute, and all the damage amps that it brings. The build definitely feels better, not having to worry about Balespider's Burning Core, but a 100% damage amp to your next Demon Bolt cast, whether it's 25, 50, 75, or 100, it's actually pretty big. So I'm curious to see when Sims come out, how this build Sims, if any more changes coming up, obviously talent-wise, or anything to Demonology. And then once Sims come out, how this build Sims, I've got a lot of questions about it, but I do definitely think there's something here. Affliction was dealing like 3.5, 3.6-ish around there, give or take, playing Scouring Tide, the Necrolord, other like random abilities, like different covenants being tied in. If Demo can even pace them to a decent extent with a broken covenant ability, it's not even working with the main ability here, and how it stacks off every other effect, I think there's merit to this build. I'm excited to see what happens next week when it only affects Demon Bolt as well. Thanks for watching, dudes. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and this first-hand look at potentially a new build of Demonology if it ends up being worthwhile. I certainly had a good time making it, so I hope you guys enjoy it. I have to say, like, I really truly do feel that there is some power behind this build. It's pretty, I guess, management intense is one way to put it, probably not the best way to put it, but there's a lot you have to manage with demonic core procs coming in from your dog expiring, random things expiring, your tyrant expiring for playing the conduit, if not random hand of Gul'dan procs or cast giving you demonic core stacks. There's a lot to manage, and like I said, I don't know what the end build's going to look like, if it's even worthwhile. But there's a lot of synergy here. Power Siphon, the Legendary, the Conduits, Inner Demons, Sack Souls, potentially. Although I will say that Demonic Consumption still looks strong. Even playing the build with Sack Souls and every effect catering towards Sack Souls damage amp, when you swap the Consumption, the damage is there. Like, it's still there. There are some abilities that are just so strong, even though they're not as synergistic with a build or something you're looking to do, you just still play them. Demonic Consumption is one of those, I feel, probably at this point, and being real, at this point, with the changes to Consumption, so is most likely Grimoire Felguard. Once again, any weak auras, profiles, or add-ons you see here, feel free to swing by my Twitch and grab them anytime. They are all available to you guys for free. Let me know what you guys think of the build here in the comment section below. Any little things you think might push this build a bit further, anything I might have missed here. Once again, rotationally, things weren't optimal here, obviously. I've been playing with different builds for a little bit now, but nothing's like, you know, set in stone, hey, this is the best way to open, this is the best use of everything. So hopefully it was helpful to you guys. Thanks for watching, dudes. If you guys want to see more content, be sure to smash the subscribe button below. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys again soon on stream. Peace.